Welcome to the Reality of Herbal Therapy podcast. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about another one of the herbs in Dr. James's 20 Herbs book. So if you don't remember what the 20 Herbs book is, Dr. James, when he first started out, he put together a little booklet to give to people because quite often he would have people calling him, late in the evening or middle of the night, and they're like, my child has this going on, what do I do for them? And he'd be like, well, do you have peppermint? And they'd be like, no. Or do you have sage? And they'd be like, no. So he came up with a list of 20 herbs, very common herbs, back when he wrote this back in the early 80s, so that you could he could say, okay, here's the list. You have these herbs in your house, and then whatever's going on, you can look up in the booklet, and it would tell you how to make a tea or whatever, or a compress or something like that to help you deal with the problem. So the herb I wanted to talk about today is hops. If you're not familiar with hops, a lot of people, if you mention hops to most people, they're like, oh, that's in beer. And it is used in beer, but it also is used for a lot of other things. It's actually been used for thousands and thousands of years. It's a wonderful herb. Basically, it's calming to the nerves, and so it was put into beer because it would help to preserve it. It kind of had a little bit of antimicrobial properties, but it also is very calming to the nerves. So when they added it to beer, the alcohol kind of numbs you, but also the hops would relax you and calm the nerves down. So that's kind of where it got its start, where that's how it ended up in beer. In the Middle Ages, they used to grow it around monasteries, partly because to help the monks sleep, have it growing everywhere. But it's a great herb. I remember seeing a commercial once where you saw these guys that were walking down they had these large vines growing, and it had these flowers, and they would grab a handful of these. Well, the flowers, it looks kind of like a pine cone, but it's soft. It's not hard like a pine cone, but the shape of the flowers is very similar to a pine cone. And so they'd grab a whole bunch of these and just stick their face in it and breathe really deep. If you've ever smelled hops, I don't like the smell. It's really got a bitter smell to it. But the thing about bitters, anything that smells bitter or tastes bitter, it triggers the liver to dump bile. So anytime you have any liver, anything like that, hops is really good to get the liver to dump bile. So some of the things like that hops were used for anciently, like I said, they grew them around monasteries. They grow wild. It's kind of like a climbing vine. It's not like a bean or something that has shoots off that will wrap around something to help it climb. These have little hairs on them that help them climb. And so their leaves look kind of like grape leaves, or pretty big leaves. And then it has these cone flowers that look like a pine cone. And so they grow all over. Now that they're grown all over northern United States, they grow a lot of them in Oregon and Washington, and those kind of wetter climates that have a mild winter, but the summers aren't really hot. So like we talked about it, hops helps calm nerves. It relaxes the nerves. So it's used quite often in any nerve tonic, anything like that. So of course it's one of the main ingredients in Nerquilizer to help Nerquilizer work. If you've ever had Nerquilizer, hops is the one that is really fast acting. It calms the nerves down. If you ever have any pain or anything like that, hops can help with that. I also, like I said, it's good for digestion because it gets the liver to dump bile, and bile is what our body uses to help digest food, to break it up. So that's always really wonderful. It's used for sleep aids. So people have a hard time sleeping. If you like make a hops tea and drink it before bed, it'll help you sleep. That's why, and again, back to Nerquilizer, that the hops in there helps you to sleep. Another thing that's really popular or common to do, if you, because like I said, it doesn't smell great and it doesn't taste great. We had some hops that Lynn got to try, and she mixed it with a lot of peppermint and some other better tasting herbs because it's got a really strong flavor, but if for what you want it to do, hops is amazing. So, what are some ways to use hops? So, like I talked about, making it into a tea and drinking it. That's a common way to do it in capsules, like in Nerquilizer. Another thing you can do is like they call them sleep sachet or a pillow, or just stuff some in your pillow. Put some inside your pillowcase. If you're having a hard time sleeping, you have insomnia, waking up in the night, or if you're having nightmares or disturbing dreams or anything like that, a little bit of hops in your pillowcase can help with that. One of the things that, like, just kind of a side note, if you keep waking up at night, look at the time that you wake up, because if it's at the exact same time every night that you have insomnia and you wake up, there are certain body functions that your body does that cleanses or does certain things, and if the cleansing is blocked, you'll wake up. So there's a Chinese chart. If you just look at it, it'll show you, what your body is doing at different hours of the day and night. And so if you wake up at the same time every night, so like for example, 3 o'clock, 3 in the morning is your bladder. Your bladder's needs to flush and cleanse out. And if it's clogged or you have an issue, you're going to wake up and need to urinate. And so you want to look and see what it is. So then if you treat whatever's waking you up, you'll sleep better as well. So hops is also made into tinctures, extracts. Those are always an easy way to take it. But like I said, it's got a flavor. It tastes strong. And so anything that can touch the tongue and you're going to taste it, it's pretty strong. So another thing is topical compress. So like if you have a bruise, like if you get hurt and you have a bruise and it's really, really painful, make a tea out of hops and then soak a rag in your tea and put it on that bruise, and it'll really soothe the pain, and it helps with the blood flow, and it stops the nerves. When nerves are damaged, they get inflamed, and it pain is a it's a indicator of something wrong, but it also is a nerve is damaged and it's inflamed or something like that, and hops will calm it down. So doing a compress like that anytime you have any pain or an ache, restless leg syndrome, PM minerals are amazing for that. If you take them, like take 2 capsules just before bed, a lot of times restless leg is a symptom of a mineral deficiency, and so your nerves don't have enough of what they need, and so they get that inflamed and stuff. But making a compress out of hops tea, soaking a rag in that and putting it on your legs it'll like really calm it down and help it so you can sleep. And another thing is if you're really uptight and struggling and stuff, if you draw a warm bath and put some hops flowers in there, like in the movies they drop a few rose petals or whatever. But if you put some hops flowers in there along with some Epsom salt and some baking soda, it will so you get a whole lot of magnesium and other minerals into your body, but the hops will help calm your nerves and calm you down. So like if you have children that have a hard time going to sleep at night and you give them a bath every night, put some hops into their bath and they'll sleep a lot better. So with any of those, you can always, like Dr. James always like to do formulas. Some complementing herbs for hops are chamomile, lavender, valerian. Those are also really calming herbs. So like to mix them up. So lavender and hops both have a really strong flavor. So, if you're doing a tea, sometimes it might be a bit strong to drink that, but it is definitely really calming. So let's talk about a little bit of the old folklore of hops. So people used to like actually hang hops in their home. Basically, it would to ward off evil spirits and nightmares and to bring peace or happiness into the home. So that was a common thing to see hops, like in in the Middle Ages. They used to That's where wreaths come from. Is they would basically weave together all sorts of different herbs and flowers to have it was for decoration and pretty, but it also to give off certain smells, certain things you can for to to have in the home kind of thing. So the the hops are a feminine herb. Basically, there's like some plants have a male and female flower. Hops is one of those, and the only part that gets used is the female flower. The males aren't used. They're not Boys aren't all that important, but girls are. So they just use the female flowers for whatever it is they're using. And in the 16th century, there was a common saying that went around: "He sleeps like he's stuffed with hops." Basically, people at the time, it was a really common thing. If you had insomnia or hard time sleeping, they would stuff hops into their pillows. So if someone slept really well, nowadays it's he sl- sleeps like a baby or sleeps like a dead log, or all of those. In the 16th century, it sleeps like he's stuffed with hops. So so hops hops is a wonderful herb to have around in your home for like those 20 herbs for calm and peace and your nerves. And it can even help with digestion if you've got kind of like an ache on your right side just under your ribs. That sometimes it's a sign of the liver can't is backed up with bile and it can't dump. So just a little bit of hops will help your liver to release all of that. So I hope this has been helpful for you to learn a little bit about hops and how to use it. Again, tea is is a nice way to get it. Capsules, putting it in a sachet or a pillow. If you like the smell, and hops and lavender go really well together. A lot of people will make a little baggie with lavender and put some hops in there. If you're having a difficult time sleeping, sometimes they'll hang those off of their bedpost or something, so you're not sleeping on it and getting it all over in your bed, but it's hang it off of your bed, and then and that topical compress. Make a tea, a strong tea with hops. Soak a rag or something in it and put it wherever you're feeling that the pain. Like if you've got restless legs, put it on your legs. If you've got a bruise on your arm that is just really painful, putting that on there will make a big difference. So if you have any questions about hops, using hops, we'd love to answer them. Give us a call, or any other herbs. Where herbs are wonderful things, and especially these 20 herbs. They're pretty common. They're e- easy to have in your home, and if you have the 20 herb booklet, and I'll put the link to it down in the show notes. It gives you all sorts of ideas of what to use and how to use it. Whether if you have how to make teas or how to make the compresses, how to make other ways of using these herbs to have them in your home. So I encourage you to look at it, and we will talk to you next time. It is not the intent of professional herbal instruction or any persons associated therewith to diagnose or prescribe. The intent is only to offer herbal information for your consideration. In the event you use this information without your doctor's approval, you are prescribing for yourself, which is your God-given right. But professional herbal instruction or any persons associated herewith assume no responsibility. The claims and statements made on this podcast have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.